What if all the ice on Earth melted at once? Well, first, you'd probably want to buy a boat, a very big one. Then things would get complicated. Right now, Earth has a lot of ice, about 26 million gigatons of it. That's ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica, mountain glaciers, permafrost, and sea ice. If all of it suddenly melted, the oceans would rise by about 70 meters, or over 230 feet. That's enough to redraw the entire world map. Cities like New York, London, Shanghai, Mumbai, and Sydney would vanish beneath the waves. Basically, most of the places you've heard of would suddenly become scuba diving attractions. But the flooding would only be the beginning. Imagine trillions of tons of frozen water turning into liquid all at once. First, coastal regions would be erased instantly. Skyscrapers would look like fence posts sticking out of a new ocean. The world's shipping industry would briefly rejoice until they realized all their ports were gone. Then, there's the heat. Ice reflects sunlight. That's why you can get a sunburn while skiing. It bounces the radiation back into space. Scientists call this the albedo effect. Lose all that ice at once, and the planet's reflective shield disappears. Suddenly, Earth becomes a lot darker, absorbing more heat instead of deflecting it. Think of wearing a black t-shirt on a hot summer day. Except now, the black t-shirt is planet Earth. Temperatures would climb rapidly, creating feedback loops that make things even worse. So, what would you do if you were standing there when it happened? If you lived near the coast, you wouldn't have much time to wonder. A wall of water would roar inland, tearing apart buildings, highways, and unlucky pedestrians who didn't notice the ocean was moving in. Inland cities might fare better, for a while, but rivers would swell, lakes would spill over, and whole continents would find themselves redrawn like a sloppy watercolor painting. Animal life would be in chaos too. Polar bears, seals, and penguins would wake up homeless. Fish would get confused by sudden changes in salinity, since melting glaciers dump fresh water into the oceans. Ocean currents, which depend on delicate balances of salt and temperature, would lurch into new and unpredictable patterns. The Gulf Stream, which keeps northern Europe warm, might collapse entirely, turning London from drizzly but bearable to Siberia without the ski resorts. And then there's methane. Permafrost, the frozen ground in places like Siberia, locks away gigantic amounts of methane gas. Thaw it all at once, and that methane gets released into the atmosphere. Methane is about 25 times more effective at trapping heat than carbon dioxide. In short, it would turbocharge climate change like pouring gasoline on a bonfire. You'd be sweating while you watch coastal cities vanish on the news, assuming you still had electricity and Wi-Fi. But humans are stubborn, and some of us would survive. People living on higher ground in mountain regions or deep inland would find themselves in prime real estate, at least until their houses got crowded with new oceanfront refugees. Cities like Denver, Mexico City, or Nairobi would become world capitals overnight, simply because they'd still be above water. Of course, with billions of people suddenly displaced, there would be a few minor inconveniences like food shortages, political chaos, and the collapse of every global economy. Still, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and disco. We'd adapt. Eventually, society would rebuild on the new coastlines, farming on what land remained, and probably fighting over the best hills that hadn't yet become islands. Life would go on, but it would look nothing like the one you know. So, if all the ice on Earth melted at once, we wouldn't just lose some cute polar bears. We'd lose our cities, our climate, and a good chunk of our history. But don't worry, it's not going to happen overnight. Even with global warming, it would take centuries for that much ice to melt naturally. Unless, of course, someone invents a giant planetary hairdryer. In that case, you might want to start building an ark.